The story begins with Makoto standing in a dark, unfamiliar place, unsure whether he is dreaming. He notices the sacred stone in his hand glowing with an unfamiliar color. A black feather falls in front of him, and when he looks up, he sees a woman with large black wings floating in the air. Before reaching this moment, the story returns to its origin. In a distant realm, demons and divine spirits ruled as opposing forces. Their endless war destroyed the world until the demons claimed victory. 10 years ago, they turned toward the human world. Humans, weak and unprepared, faced extinction as demon armies invaded. In response, divine spirits appeared, granting humans courage and divine strength. Through sacred stones, humans formed bonds with the spirits and gained power. Those chosen became hunters, holding humanity's future. 10 kilometers outside Tokyo, a group of hunters gathers before a glowing gate. Rank D hunters Hino, Kamaya, and Mito prepare for an E-rank dungeon. They check their equipment and turn to Makoto Asuka, an F-rank hunter who carries their supplies. Makoto quietly confirms everything is ready. The others tease him for not being a real fighter, but he remains silent. 2 years earlier, Makoto received his sacred stone and believed he had become a true hunter. His determination grew from a past gate break in which demons killed his parents. The stone gave him hope that he could grow strong enough to prevent another tragedy. A year later, during training in a park, others mock him for still not having a spirit despite 2 years of waiting. Makoto continues practicing silently. Later, a man throws him into a trash bin, telling him to stop pretending to be a hunter without a divine spirit. Rejected by both hunters and ordinary people, Makoto continues training alone, unsure why his stone never responded. In the present, inside the dungeon, Hino's lower-ranked spirit burns monsters, while Mito attacks from a distance and Kamaya fights alongside his spirit. Once the monsters fall, a hidden demon targets Makoto. He dodges and attempts to fight, but his attacks do nothing. Hino destroys the demon and reassures him, while Makoto thanks him, believing the words are just sympathy. They soon reach the deepest room. Hino mentions demons with special habits. While Makoto listens, Kamaya and Mito restrain him. They open the gate and push him inside as bait for the E-rank boss, the behemoth. They leave him locked in a room, calling him a fake hunter. Inside, Makoto realizes their betrayal too late. The behemoth awakens and attacks. He escapes briefly, but the exit collapses. Cornered and unable to fight back, Makoto faces death without achieving anything. At that moment, the sacred stone glows with dark energy. A burst of black light forms a shadow barrier, pulling Makoto into another realm. The stone now shines with a darker hue. A winged woman appears and reaches out her hand, asking him to form a pact. Makoto accepts, believing she is his divine spirit. Their bond forms, dark energy entering his stone, and the realm fades. Back in the dungeon, Makoto faces the behemoth again. His movement is faster, but he does not know what powers he gained. He calls to the spirit, who explains the power of Rebellion Shadow, allowing him to control shadows freely. Concentrating, Makoto forms a long blade of dark energy. He prepares to fight, acknowledging that this is enough. The behemoth charges. Makoto cuts through its tail with a single strike. The monster reels back and sees a dark figure behind him. Makoto pushes forward, reshaping his shadow weapon midair to extend its range, striking the creature's limbs from a distance. As the behemoth collapses, Makoto realizes the weapon can change shape freely. Facing the wounded monster, Makoto leaps again, recalling all the times his teammates mocked him, calling him useless, fake, and incapable of forming a pact. Now he finally understands they were wrong. His sword reshapes into a massive cleaver, and he feels as if his entire struggle has led to this moment. With a single decisive strike, he splits the behemoth in two, its body falling lifeless to the ground. Makoto stands stunned, unable to believe the power he now holds. His weapon dissolves, and, breathing heavily, he sinks to the floor, overwhelmed with relief and satisfaction at defeating a demon at last. Exhausted, he He looks at his sacred stone and asks the winged woman if they can speak. Shadows rise from the stone, and she appears before him. He thanks her sincerely, acknowledging that she saved him, but she replies that she merely lent her power and that the victory was his. Makoto insists on thanking her again, relieved that she accepted the pact. Observing him quietly, he praises her abilities, believing that the power to command shadows must belong to a high-ranking divine spirit. After all, defeating an E-rank boss should not be possible with anything less. She hesitates before revealing the truth. She is not a divine spirit at all, but a demon. Makoto freezes in shock, unable to process the revelation. Demons have slaughtered countless divine spirits and nearly destroyed humanity. Hunters exist solely to fight them, forming pacts with divine spirits to stop the threat. Now he stands with a demon as his partner. He asks her again, needing answers, but before she can explain, the boss room door creaks open. Voices enter, assuming he must have been eaten by now. Mito confidently claims he's probably inside the boss's stomach, but they all fall silent when they see him alive. Makoto demands answers while his teammates stare in disbelief, trying to understand how he survived and where the boss is. Hino realizes he must have formed a pact. Kamaya panics, asking what they should do, and Hino curses, knowing that if Makoto reports this betrayal, their careers are over. The three activate their divine powers and prepare to kill him. Makoto calls out to the woman, asking her name. Surprised, she introduces herself as Rinoa. He tells her that is enough for now and asks for her power again. Startled by his determination, she agrees, and he summons his shadow sword. Hino tries to rally the group, calling Makoto weak and insisting they finish him quickly. Before they can attack, Hino's divine spirit Flama interrupts, questioning if he really intends to fight Makoto's spirit head-on. Hino asks if it is afraid, but Flama calls him foolish for not noticing how abnormal Makoto's pact is. Mito's divine spirit admits it has never encountered anything like it, while Kamaya's spirit says that Makoto's pact exists on an entirely different level. Shocked, Hino asks Flama what kind of spirit Makoto has formed a bond with. Flama explains that its exact identity is unclear, but the power resembles that of a top-class divine spirit. The revelation stuns the group. Makoto looks at Rinoa, now understanding the implications. Divine spirits are ranked lower, middle, upper, and top class, with only a rare few reaching the highest rank. These are considered the strongest among all spirits. Curious, Makoto asks Rinoa who she truly is, but she directs his attention forward. Following her gaze, he sees Hino preparing to strike while flames gather around him. Hino refuses to believe Makoto could surpass him, reasoning that since the pact is newly formed, Makoto must still be weak and has only defeated one boss. Mito notes that hunters do grow stronger by defeating demons, but it isn't certain how far that strength has progressed. Kamaya argues that if Makoto truly has a top-class spirit, they will not last long in a fight against him. Hino calls them cowards, charging straight at Makoto with flames swirling around him. He throws a flurry of flaming punches, but Makoto sidesteps each one easily, barely exerting effort as though he already knows where the strikes will land. When Hino unleashes a powerful punch, enhanced by Flame's spirit breath, Makoto cuts through the flames with a single slash of a shadow sword, shocking the others. Makoto mocks Hino, asking if he is holding back, which only enrages him further. Hino accuses him of relying on luck, claiming his newfound strength is just the result of forming a pact. Makoto clenches his teeth, insisting that what he has now is not luck. He endured years of failure without ever giving up. Infuriated, Hino unleashes an even stronger surge of flames, shouting that he will burn Makoto to ashes with his secret technique. He orders his team to fight with him, reminding them that if they do not kill Makoto now, they are as good as dead. Trembling, Mito activates her divine power, reluctantly agreeing that they have no choice. Kamaya, equally tense, curses under his breath and joins in. Hino activates Flame Spirit's Roar, Mito calls upon Water Spirit's Grand Archer, and Kamaya summons Thunder Spirit's Great Spear. Their special skills strike together, creating a massive explosion that shatters the ground and sends clouds of smoke and debris through the air. As the smoke begins to clear, Mito nervously wonders if they went too far, while Hino laughs triumphantly, insisting that trash remains trash in the end. When the dust settles, their confidence fades. Makoto stands unharmed, explaining calmly that he cut through their attacks and that the boss had been far faster than anything they can offer. He steps forward and asks if they are finally ready to face him. Hino freezes when he sees Rinoa's gaze reflected in Makoto's eyes. Forcing himself to move, he summons flames and warns Makoto not to challenge him, hurling fireballs while calling him a pathetic wannabe hunter. Makoto lowers his stance and dodges each flame as he rushes forward. Closing the distance, Hino tries to speak, but Makoto conceals his shadow weapon, then strikes directly with a punch to Hino's stomach, sending him flying and coughing blood. Looking down at him, Makoto states firmly that he is a hunter. Hino crashes to the ground near his teammates and collapses, trembling. Makoto orders the three of them to take Hino and leave, warning them not to speak of what happened. In panic, Mito and Kamaya pull Hino away and flee. When the dust finally settles, Makoto's sacred stone glows and Rinoa appears, quietly commenting that she never expected him to resort to punching Hino. He replies that cutting him down was unnecessary and thanks her for supporting him during the fight. She smiles warmly, and he reminds her that they were in the middle of an important conversation. She nods as he asks her to explain how she is a demon rather than a divine spirit. With a serious expression, Rinoa clenches her hands and prepares to explain. She says she was once a divine spirit from the angel race, but after a certain event, she fell from grace and became a demon. Makoto listens, surprised, noting to himself how unexpected it is since angels are among the highest-ranking spirits, and the idea of one becoming a demon is hard to believe. She continues, explaining that her past as a divine spirit is the reason she is still able to form a pact, though she does not know why her sacred stone ended up with him. Makoto acknowledges that the situation feels strange, but says he understands. Rinoa admits that no matter how she hides it, she is still a demon, and offers to end the pact if he feels uneasy. Her voice wavers slightly as she grips her arm, which Makoto notices. He sighs, sits beside her, and introduces himself properly as Makoto, an 18-year-old hunter. Rinoa is surprised, asking why he suddenly chose to introduce himself, but he explains that he knows she is not a bad person and has no intention of canceling the pact. She's stunned at first, but eventually smiles when he says this is his way of showing he's counting on her. Calling him a strange human, she accepts. He smiles back, stands up, and suggests they return together. Meanwhile, in the demon realm, two demons observe from afar. One mocks Rinoa for betraying them, while the other laughs it off, saying it doesn't affect their plans. The first one only smirks, finding it entertaining. Back in Tokyo, Makoto returns to his small apartment and opens the door to room 3003. The interior is simple, a bed, a small table, and a few boxes. He tells Rinoa to sit wherever she wants. She looks around, unimpressed, saying it's hard to believe humans live like this. Makoto asks what's wrong, and she says it reminds her of demon caves, basic shelters just meant to block wind and rain. He laughs and says it's only a place to sleep before asking if she has any preferences. After thinking, she says she likes beautiful scenery. Noticing her looking toward the window, he suggests adding flowers there. She agrees, saying the idea suits his taste. He then proposes buying a new flower every time they clear a dungeon, which makes her smile. Feeling tired, he heads to bed. When he tries to lie down, Rinoa lies there too, commenting that the bed is small for two people. Makoto blushes and asks if she plans to sleep next to him. She explains that sharing beds is normal in the angelic realm. He asks if divine spirits even need sleep, and she admits she isn't sure. He tells her to return to her sacred stone instead. She agrees, says goodnight, and disappears. Makoto stares at the stone briefly before lying down and thinking about the consequences of forming a pact with a demon. If anyone finds out, he's done for. For now, he decides to move solo and tackle an F-rank dungeon he can handle alone. The next day at the Japanese Hunter Association, he enters with Rinoa hidden in his glove. He asks if she feels any pressure, but she says she's fine and praises his idea to hide the purple stone since it would attract attention. He heads to the counter to register for an F-rank dungeon, but before he finishes, the entire hall erupts as the famous S-rank hunter Amagi, Yugo, walks in drinking alcohol casually. Hunters rush him for autographs while he laughs about how lively the place is. Yugo notices Makoto and approaches him. Makoto immediately recognizes him and freezes as Yugo asks for his name and rank. Makoto confirms he's Makoto Ose, an F-rank hunter. Yugo tilts his head, doubtful, and asks again if he's really F-rank. Makoto asks why he's asking, and Yugo says he has his reasons. He then turns to the assistant, apologizes for interrupting, and casually invites her for tea before leaving. As he walks away, he calls out that he and Makoto will meet again. The assistant is left speechless, excited just from being acknowledged, while Makoto wonders if he was just approached by a top-tier legend for no reason. He finishes his registration, takes the coordinates, and leaves, still confused but reminding himself to focus on his first solo dungeon clear, even if it's only F-rank. Upon reaching the dungeon gate, he double-checks the location and enters. Inside, the atmosphere feels heavier than usual. Rinoa asks if F-rank demons are really supposed to be the weakest, and he confirms while asking if she senses something off. Suddenly, something large charges at him. He quickly summons his shadow, sword to block, but the force sends him flying backward. He stands up, shaken, and Rinoa checks if he's fine. He sees the creature clearly now, a chaos wolf, which is D rank. Rinoa states that the dungeon isn't normal. Makoto realizes he may have entered the wrong dungeon entirely. The wolves surround him, and the exit gate seals shut. Rinoa notes that he understands the danger, and he acknowledges that handling them all at once will be tough. She retreats into the sacred stone so she won't distract him. He extends the length of his sword and prepares to cut down their numbers first. He charges at one wolf, but another attacks from behind. He dodges, but a third lands a hit and knocks him to the ground. Observing their movements, he realizes they are coordinated and wait for small openings. Rinoa watches from the stone, thinking aloud while telling him to pay close attention. Makoto develops a risky plan. He deactivates his weapon, intentionally exposing himself to lure them in. Rinoa is alarmed, knowing one mistake could be fatal. The wolves leap together, and at the last second he reactivates his shadow sword, cutting through multiple wolves in a single strike. He stares at the sword, relieved the plan worked. Rinoa reappears and praises how he used his weakness as bait. He laughs breathlessly, admitting he wasn't sure it would work. They question why the dungeon feels stronger than expected and conclude it's actually D rank. Even though it's above his level, he continues since the gate won't open until the boss is defeated. Movement echoes again, and more wolves appear. Makoto's patience wears thin. He just finished fighting a group, and now another pack spawns like a game set to hard mode. Rinoa returns to the sacred stone, saying things are different now, and instructs Makoto to try something new. She tells him to raise his hand, focus on shadow chains, and aim at a wolf. When he does, chains of darkness shoot forward and wrap around the wolf. She explains that this ability is called Shadow Bind and is meant to restrain enemies. Makoto pulls the wolf toward him and slices it cleanly. Another wolf charges from behind, but he casts Shadow Bind again, grabs the chain with his other hand, and swings the creature into the others. The wolves scatter, and Makoto laughs to himself, realizing how enjoyable this new ability is. Rinoa praises him, but warns that Shadow Bind drains magic quickly. He nods, confident that with this ability, he can push forward. After a long fight, he plants his shadow sword into the ground and exhales, looking at the pile of defeated wolves. He feels proud that he isn't tired, and Rinoa remarks that hunters grow stronger by defeating demons and that his endurance is improving. He looks at his hands with a sense of progress before signaling that it's time to continue. As they move deeper, Rinoa observes quietly, impressed by how quickly he adapts. His quick decisions and instinctive reactions reinforce her belief in his potential. Eventually, they reach the deepest part of the dungeon, where a massive gate stands. Makoto pauses as his heartbeat quickens. Rinoa appears beside him and asks what's wrong. He admits he's nervous but excited since clearing dungeons and proving strength is what being a hunter is about. She reminds him it's only the beginning. He pushes open the gate, steps inside, and closes it behind him. The air grows heavier as he faces the dungeon boss, a towering hell scorpion with a massive stinger raised and ready. Its armor glints like hardened minerals, making him wonder if it's tougher than steel. Rinoa senses his concern and asks if he's scared. He denies it, blaming his reaction on battle tension. The scorpion lunges, slamming its tail into the ground and creating a crater where he stood moments earlier. Makoto dodges and quickly realizes how precise and deadly its attacks are. A large claw comes next, and he blocks it with his shadow sword before climbing up the arm and striking downward. The attack leaves no mark, confirming how durable the armor is. The scorpion twists violently as he jumps back to a safer distance, focusing on its movements while knowing every tough armor has weak points. Rinoa watches silently as Makoto continues attacking, aiming at its arms and tail, but he still fails to leave a scratch. He uses all his strength in a blow to the head, but the surface remains untouched. The scorpion roars and unleashes a shock wave that forces him to cover his ears from the painful vibration. Its tail then shifts into crystal spikes that fire toward him like bullets. He retreats quickly, feeling some graze his skin, frustrated that the creature now has long-range attacks as well. He calls to Rinoa for help, and she explains that in his current state damaging the creature is nearly impossible, meaning he must surpass his limits. The scorpion charges again, but Makoto reacts fast, using Shadow Bind to restrain its arms and slam it into the wall hard enough to shake the cavern. He realizes that taking that hit directly would have ended the fight instantly. As the scorpion turns, he notices a crack on its head, realizing that blunt force may be more effective than slashing. The beast charges faster than before, and Makoto dodges while thinking through his options. He considers resizing his sword before abandoning the idea. Cutting won't solve the problem. Rinoa calls to him, reminding him of his first time using his shadow weapon, and he understands immediately. Remembering how he won his previous fight, he prepares as the scorpion charges with both claws ready to crush him. He leaps into the air, and Rinoa warns that he can't dodge midair. The scorpion fires another barrage of spikes, but instead of retreating, Makoto uses Shadow Bind to pull himself forward through them. Covering his head, he pushes onward and midair transforms his shadow sword into a massive hammer. With one decisive strike, he slams it onto the scorpion's head, finally bringing it down. Breathing heavily, he relaxes as Rinoa admits she had been stubborn about not giving a direct hint. He laughs, saying they're both alike, while she explains that the shadow weapon can take many forms besides a sword. He's relieved he figured it out from her hint and jokes that she could have just told him earlier. She reminds him that learning by doing is part of his growth, and he agrees. She adds that unexpected situations accelerate growth as well, saying it would be nice if they happened more often. He hopes not, and they leave the dungeon. The next day, at the Tokyo Hunter Association, an assistant repeatedly apologizes for the ranking mix-up. Makoto tells her it's fine and that he learned a lot from it. She asks him to confirm his payment, and he freezes when he sees 1,500,000 yen. She explains that clearing a D-rank dungeon solo earns that amount, and says she hopes to work with him again, calling him Mr. Hunter, which leaves him quietly pleased. Walking outside, he tells Rinoa that they should finally buy flowers for their apartment. She agrees, and Makoto smiles, thinking he can easily afford the best bouquet now. Just then he senses a familiar presence passing by and stops. A woman calls his name, and he turns to see Ryuka Kazan, his childhood friend, smiling brightly as she greets him and asks how he has been. Makoto tells her he finally formed a pact with a divine spirit and has been working hard. Ryuka congratulates him enthusiastically, saying she always believed he could reach this point. People nearby begin whispering in surprise, shocked that the rising star Ryuka Kazan is speaking with someone they consider a wannabe hunter. Makoto scratches his neck awkwardly while Rinoa grows curious. He explains that Ryuka is a former childhood friend and a top-ranked hunter known for her overwhelming potential. At the same time, he recalls her strong hatred toward demons, stronger than anyone he has ever met, which makes him uncertain about how things will develop from here. Ryuka has been close to Makoto since childhood. They grew up together, shared experiences, and maintained their bond even as they got older. Everything changed when demons erupted across the world, destroying cities without effort. During the chaos, a group of demons pursued Ryuka and her older brother. After being injured by a demon's attack, her brother realized the situation was beyond recovery and turned back to hold them off, telling Ryuka to escape. She hesitated, wanting to stay, but he insisted. Before the moment could end, the monster struck again, and he barely managed to block the attack. The demon's power was far beyond human ability, and Ryuka watched helplessly as her brother was crushed in front of her. That memory stayed with her. Years later, around 2 years ago, both Makoto and Ryuka received their sacred stones. Makoto apologized at the time, explaining that his divine spirit had still not appeared, making it impossible to keep their promise of fighting together. Ryuka maintained a calm expression, saying she understood but couldn't wait indefinitely. She turned away and joined the Hunter Association, moving onward without him. In the present, the two sit together in a bright cafe, a sharp contrast to the battles they've experienced. Ryuka enthusiastically recommends the parfait and compliments Makoto for clearing a D-rank dungeon alone right after forming his pact. He reminds her that he is still classified as a lower rank, but she brushes it aside, saying it is still impressive and that he is finally showing his true potential. After some time, curiosity surfaces and she asks about his divine spirit. Makoto freezes, unsure how to answer. Rinoa quietly suggests that she could appear, but Makoto hesitates, thinking it might cause complications. Choosing a safer explanation, he tells Ryuka that his divine spirit is simply shy, making introductions awkward. Ryuka looks confused and questions whether divine spirits can even behave that way. Rinoa mutters under her breath that she isn't shy, while Makoto simply tells her to relax. The mood is complicated. Kazane raises her hand, revealing her sacred stone, volunteering to introduce her spirit first. A soft glow appears, forming her upper-rank divine spirit, Wave, the wind spirit, who bows politely. Wave greets Makoto with calm courtesy, catching him off guard with how composed and graceful the spirit is. Kazane asks whether he intends to take a rank reassessment soon, but Makoto explains the scheduled date is still far off. She encourages him to keep training and suggests they challenge a C-rank dungeon together. He's hesitant, feeling the gap in their strength is still too wide and worried that Rinoa's identity might be exposed. Kazane only smiles, reminding him that he once led her when they were younger, and now it's her turn to lead. Her warm expression softens his doubts. He agrees, recalling a promise they made long ago. Deep down, he's uneasy about the risks, but he puts those thoughts aside, recognizing this as a chance to grow. Kazane brightens, excited that they can finally fight together. Meanwhile, in the Tokyo Hunter Association building, a meeting room full of high-ranking officials discusses a growing threat. A mage reports that these beings possess human-level intelligence and power at least equal to A rank, though until recently they remained hidden. Lately, multiple hunters have fallen to them, and their strength feels unreal, as if the battles were a nightmare. Kamuru, the association president, listens and jokes that if he were still in his prime, he would hunt them himself. Mishima, the gate management section chief, immediately scolds him, explaining this isn't the time for jokes. She states that every gate has been properly cleared, yet survivors insist these beings appear afterward. Another official adds that they only show up once the dungeon has already been completed, leaving the purpose of their actions unclear. Amagi enters, asking if the meeting has started. Mishima scolds him again, but he brushes it off with a light comment about her expression, earning a scoff. After hearing the report, he claims he might understand what's happening. Mishima warns him not to invent theories, but Amagi confidently insists he'll handle it. Kamuru trusts his instincts and gives approval. As Amagi leaves, he reflects on Makoto, realizing his earlier prediction about the boy might be correct. Later, at an abandoned building, Makoto and Kazane stand before a glowing C-rank dungeon gate. Kazane asks if he's nervous, and he admits he is, not just because of the demons inside, but also due to concerns about Rinoa's presence and how Kazane might react if the truth comes out. Sensing his tension, Kazane taps his chest lightly, reassuring him that she'll support him. Makoto smiles, thanking her, but insists he intends to prove he's not just someone who needs protecting. They step into the gate. The atmosphere is thick with demonic energy. 2 C-rank demons stand ahead, growling. Makoto prepares a shadow weapon, ready to assess the situation, but before he can act, a sharp blast of wind surges past him. Kazane is already charging ahead, her spear glowing as it pierces straight through a demon's head, destroying it in a clean strike. Makoto pauses, stunned, while Kazane's expression sharpens as she states that every demon needs to be eliminated. The intensity behind her words is stronger than before, almost intimidating. She turns toward him and says she senses another demonic presence. Her eyes narrow as she looks directly at him, asking where it's coming from. Panic flickers in Makoto's mind as he realizes she may have sensed Rinoa's energy from the beginning. He quickly deactivates his shadow weapon, letting the dark energy fade. Kazane scans the surroundings, explaining that she thought one of the demons might have escaped. Still, she insists the presence she felt was real and tells him to stay alert. Makoto nods, aware that her sensitivity to demonic energy is much sharper than he expected, and that she may have picked up traces of his shadow magic. Rinoa quietly confirms it, adding that Kazane's hatred for demons is serious. Makoto considers telling her the truth, but after seeing her earlier reaction, he decides to wait. The weight of that choice lingers in his chest as he follows her deeper into the dungeon. They reach the middle zone, where a swarm of demons erupts from the darkness. Kazane immediately activates her Wind Spirit's mantle, kicking the first demon flat and slicing it cleanly in half midair. Suspended in the air with wind swirling around her, she pierces another through the chest, then spins her spear in a full arc, cutting through several more before they can react. Makoto watches, thinking she might even be able to fly with that ability. He joins in, taking the ground demons while telling her to focus on the aerial ones. Blocking a claw strike with his arm, he cuts through a demon's chest and fires a blast of shadow energy through another. The demons here are clearly stronger than those he fought before, but he moves with more confidence, knowing he has grown as well. He shifts his weapon from a sword into a gun and starts firing, tearing holes through demons with explosive shots. Kazane glances down mid-battle and nearly breaks focus when she sees the weapon change shape. She watches briefly as he shifts it back into a sword and continues fighting, noting that she's never seen an ability like that. Within minutes, the swarm falls and the area goes silent once again. Kazane lands smoothly, resting her spear on her shoulder with a small smile, and tells him he's doing well against C-rank demons. He thanks her while trying not to sound overly proud. She tilts her head and notes that the unusual demonic energy she sensed earlier seems to have disappeared, so maybe it was nothing. He laughs it off, relieved that she hasn't figured out Rinoa's secret. A quiet voice in his mind questions whether he plans to keep hiding this forever, making him pause in thought. Rinoa isn't a normal demon, but a reliable partner, and part of him believes Kazane might understand if he explains everything. Yet her hatred toward demons makes him hesitate while he quietly asks himself what the right choice is. They continue deeper until reaching massive stone doors that mark the boss's chamber. Kazane points them out and asks if he's ready. He says he is, though his nerves say otherwise. She hints that he's anxious because this is a C-rank boss, and before he can respond, she reminds him that he isn't fighting alone. She raises her fist toward him, and he lightly bumps it, thanking her and deciding to talk to her after the battle. They push the doors open together. The atmosphere shifts immediately as a massive cyclops steps forward, its single eye glowing. Makoto feels the force of its presence just as Kazane activates her wind mantle again, declaring that no demon will be spared and rushing forward. The Cyclops raises its large wooden hammer, but Makoto binds it with shadow chains long enough for Kazane to land a direct hit to its torso. The monster breaks free and swings violently, forcing them both to evade. They regroup briefly before attacking again, moving in sync as they strike from both sides, shaking the entire chamber. Kazane targets its legs while Makoto shifts his weapon into a scythe, cutting at its knees. The Cyclops stumbles with another roar. Makoto restrains it once more and signals Kazane to finish it. She unleashes her divine power and uses Wind Shower, blasting the Cyclops backward. When the dust fades, the monster dissolves into dark mist. Kazane lands beside him, noting how well they fought together. Makoto agrees, but feels internally that it still isn't enough. Wave appears, praising their coordination, and Kazane laughs, saying their years of friendship are finally showing and that together they make a strong team. Makoto steps closer, saying there's something he needs to tell her before they move forward. His voice shakes slightly as he removes his glove and reaches for his sacred stone, ready to reveal Rinoa. Before he can continue, a crack splits the room as a dark gate forms midair, sending sparks across the ground. A clawed hand emerges, followed by a humanoid demon who walks out with a wide grin, saying he has finally found Makoto. The atmosphere thickens with dark energy, and Makoto realizes instantly that this enemy is different from the others. Kazane senses it too and pushes him back, asking if he is one of Megan. He laughs and introduces himself as Grom. Kazane acknowledges the rumors and tells Makoto that if they fight head-on, they won't stand a chance, insisting she will buy him time and he should run. He tries to argue, but her tone stops him, the same tone she used in the past when her brother made his final stand. She tells him it's enough if he survives and rushes forward. Her wind mantle surges as she strikes with everything she has, while Grom dodges casually, commenting on her speed as if she's moving slowly. She pushes harder, releasing more power, but he continues evading until he grabs her spear mid-attack and pulls her close. She barely escapes as his claws slice through the air where her neck was moments earlier. She calls for Wave, who appears in a flash of green light. They combine their power into a storm that tears through the chamber, while Makoto shields himself with his shadow weapon. When the storm settles, Grom stands untouched, saying her strongest attack feels no more than a breeze. Her grip tightens on her spear as he comments on her hatred for demons and asks if she understands why she feels that way. She demands an explanation, and he points at Makoto, saying he's the one she should be questioning because he made a pact with a demon. Kazane stares in disbelief and denies it, insisting Makoto would never betray humanity. Her voice wavers when he doesn't respond. She turns to him, demanding the truth. Makoto realizes he can't avoid it anymore. He removes his gloves, reveals his sacred stone, and calls Rinoa's name. Light bursts through the room as Rinoa materializes beside Makoto, her presence gentle yet unmistakably demonic. Kazane steps back, eyes widening as the truth finally sinks in. Makoto tries to explain that Rinoa is different, but Kazane's anger erupts before he can get more than a few words out. She raises her spear, shouting that his pact betrays everything they've fought for. Makoto pleads for her to listen, but she's too furious to hear anything. Her voice trembles with a sense of betrayal before she turns and hurls her spear at Grom, declaring she will take him down first. Grom catches the spear effortlessly and seizes Kazane by the neck before she can react. She hangs suspended, struggling for air. Makoto sends a shadow chain to restrain Grom's arm, yelling for him to stop. Grom laughs, tears the chain apart, and tosses Kazane aside. She crashes across the floor, and Makoto rushes forward, catching her before she slams into the wall. He lowers her gently, quietly promising to fix everything. Grom turns his attention to Rinoa with a sharp, knowing look, calling her a fallen angel in a tone mixed with mockery and curiosity. Her voice turns cold as she tells him she never wanted to hear him again. Makoto asks if they know each other, and Rinoa explains that after she first fell from grace, the Majin tried to claim her, but she escaped. Makoto clenches his jaw, realizing how close she came to joining them. Grom shrugs and says that to the Majin, she's still just another soldier waiting to be collected. Rinoa glares back, insisting she will never be one of them and that demons are her enemies. Grom laughs and asks if she doesn't want vengeance on the divine spirits who abandoned her. The words hit her deeply, and she recoils. He tells her that joining them would allow her to destroy anyone she wishes, divine spirits, humans, demons, whoever she chooses. He calls that true freedom. Rinoa's voice trembles as old pain resurfaces, but she can't bring herself to respond. Her hands shake and her eyes fill with tears. Makoto steps in front of her, forming his shadow blade. He tells Grom she's nothing like them. Grom raises a brow, asking what makes her different. Makoto says that if being a demon means destroying others for fun, then Rinoa is the opposite, brave, kind, and always the first to risk herself for others. He calls her his partner, someone who has fought alongside him through everything. Rinoa looks at him, trembling, a small glow returning to her eyes. Grom's expression twists with disgust as he calls their bond pathetic, saying emotions only make humans weak and that he will destroy both their bond and their lives. He raises his claws to strike, but Makoto prepares himself, shadows swirling around him. He declares that if protecting Rinoa makes him a fool, then he accepts that. Rinoa steps beside him, wings spreading as her resolve returns. Together, they face Grom, standing against a force that could erase them instantly. Grom grins, admitting the fight might be interesting. Makoto charges with shadows spiraling around his blade. Rinoa beside him, with light flaring, as the dungeon trembles with the start of their clash. Grom stretches casually, a smug grin on his face, while Rinoa warns Makoto that defeating him is impossible. She explains that his overconfidence may be their only way out and that escape should be their focus. Before she finishes, Grom dashes forward with impossible speed. Makoto barely raises his sword before Grom disappears and reappears behind him, delivering a kick that launches him into the wall. Makoto coughs from the impact as Grom approaches calmly, enjoying the fight. Makoto quickly summons Shadowbind, chaining Grom's arm and leg before shifting his weapon into a gun and firing shadow bullets. Grom breaks free without effort, catches the bullets midair, and drops them to the floor with a mocking smirk. He remarks that it would have been more fun to throw them back, and taunts Makoto for running out of tricks. The taunts make Makoto realize he's being toyed with. While the fight continues, Kazane slowly regains consciousness. Her vision clears just enough to see Makoto, bloodied and struggling, still fighting Grom head-on, with Rinoa supporting him. Her heart sinks at how injured he is, and even deeper when she sees he truly has made a pact with a demon. She clutches his coat, overwhelmed by confusion and disbelief as she wonders how everything reached this point. Grom delivers another brutal kick to Makoto's side, then follows with a strike to his stomach, calling him weak and insisting his efforts mean nothing. Makoto collapses with a groan, but forces himself back to his feet, shaking and short of breath, refusing to stay down. He admits that he is weak and cannot match Grom, but still refuses to give up. Kazane freezes as his voice triggers a memory. She recalls the week after her brother's death, when Makoto entered her room to tell her that her mother was worried because she hadn't eaten in days. She told him that nothing mattered anymore, and continuing felt pointless. Makoto quietly sat beside her, patting her back and telling her not to give up, because surrendering would mean losing everything for real. He told her he understood the pain, because he felt the same way when he lost his parents. He had learned that those who survived still had a path ahead of them, and the only way to find it was to keep moving forward. That memory brings tears to Kazane's eyes, because it was Makoto's words that gave her strength back then. Snapping back to the present, she sees him struggling to block Grom's next strike, only to be overpowered and thrown aside once more. Grom taunts him, saying spirit alone will not save him. Despite his trembling body and bruised hands, Makoto rises again, glaring up at Grom with that same stubborn fire. Kazane grips her coat tighter, realizing that this is exactly who he has always been, someone straightforward, strong-willed, and relentless no matter how many times he falls. Even if he made a pact with a demon, his heart remains unchanged. She finally screams for him not to give up, her voice cutting through the chaos. Makoto looks back at her, and her small but confident smile reminds him she still believes in him. Encouraged, he smiles back just as Grom charges again, warning him not to get distracted. Makoto meets the strike head-on, blocking it with his sword and catching Grom off guard with his sudden strength. Sparks fly as the two lock eyes, and Makoto's thoughts drift briefly to Kazane's pain and everything she has endured. That faith fuels him, pushing him to move faster. He leaps into the air to avoid Grom's next attack, swinging his sword in one clean motion, silently promising himself he cannot fall here. The air whistles as the blade slices past, and though Grom tilts his head to dodge, the edge still grazes his face. A thin line of blood falls to the ground, silencing the battlefield. Makoto lands and steps back, breath heavy but controlled, while Grom slowly licks the blood from his cheek with a twisted smile. Instead of rage, he appears entertained and says the fight has gone on long enough. The atmosphere shifts as he gathers dark energy, forming a swirling storm of black magic that makes the ground tremble. He calls it a parting gift for their afterlife, and even Rinoa and Kazane feel the crushing weight of it. Makoto quivers slightly, struggling to comprehend how one being can hold so much power. Grom turns his gaze toward Rinoa and tells her to return to his side if she wants her friends to live. He implies Makoto's time is over, but she looks at Makoto, standing firm despite the pain, and his quiet nod tells her to stay strong. She turns back to Grom and refuses to submit. His smile fades, and he unleashes a massive surge of dark power called Doom of the Underworld. The attack rushes forward like a tidal wave, drowning everything in roaring darkness. Despair sets in, and even Makoto feels his resolve flicker. Then a bright yellow light erupts between them, opening a massive void that swallows Grom's attack entirely. In the same instant it appeared, the light vanishes and silence returns. Everyone is frozen, even Grom, staring in disbelief. Makoto demands to know what just happened. Before he can react, a hand rests calmly on his shoulder. A voice tells Grom that his actions will not be allowed to destroy the hope of a brighter future. Makoto turns to see a tall, confident man standing behind him with an aura that radiates authority. The stranger introduces himself as Amagi and asks Grom if he wants to fight him as well. He tells Makoto he fought well and that he can leave the rest to him. As Amagi steps forward, the air grows heavy with pressure, revealing the presence of an S-rank hunter. Grom acknowledges his strength, but speaks with arrogance. Amagi casually tosses his drink into a portal like discarded trash and says he is stronger than Grom, clearly provoking him. The taunt works, and as Grom's anger flares, Amagi smiles and says he needs to repay him for injuring his junior hunter while unveiling his special class divine spirit, Nova. Grom crouches with a grin and lunges with a punch capable of flattening a tank, but Amagi catches it effortlessly. He smirks and tells him not to touch his face, then throws him aside with ease. Before Grom hits the ground, a spatial rift opens behind him, flinging him back toward Amagi, who meets him with a punch to the stomach that sends him crashing into the wall. The impact cracks the ground, and even the dungeon trembles. Rinoa explains that divine power works especially well against demons, but admits Amagi's power is beyond normal, almost like a cheat code. Grom summons dark energy and launches it at Amagi, who doesn't move. Instead, he releases Sky Piercer, which absorbs and compresses the attack before detonating inside the weapon, shattering one of Grom's arms. Makoto watches in shock, realizing Amagi isn't just strong, he is overwhelmingly unfair in power. Amagi laughs, saying Grom barely avoided serious damage and should start using his full strength, only provoking him further. Before the fight escalates, another demon appears and stops Grom's next attack. Everyone freezes as Grom recognizes him as Fine and demands to know why he's there. Fine warns that using his power in that state will destroy him, then turns to Amagi, stating that neither of them would win easily if they fought. Amagi agrees, and Fine declares the fight a draw, ordering Grom to retreat. Grom protests, but falls silent under Fine's glare. Before stepping through the gate, he threatens to return and make them regret everything, then disappears, leaving an eerie quiet behind. Amagi breaks the silence by asking if the demons are gone. Makoto steps forward, bows, and thanks him for the help, but Amagi dismisses it and says they can talk on the way back. During their walk, Makoto nervously asks if Amagi had always suspected he had a connection to a demon. Amagi takes a sip of his drink and says he did, explaining that it's why Grom was following him. He then turns to Makoto and Kazane, asking if they finally made peace, making both of them freeze. Kazani says that Makoto hasn't changed, but when she looks at Rinoa, she adds that trusting her is a different issue. Rinoa shrugs and says Kazani can believe whatever she wants. The air grows tense, and Makoto panics. Try to calm them both down. Yugo watches quietly before noting that Rinoa, as a former spirit with traits close to a demon, may play an important role later. He then reassures Makoto that he accepts both him and Rinoa as human, which makes Makoto feel relieved and grateful. Fueled by that reassurance, Makoto runs ahead, declaring that he will become stronger than he is now. His sudden confidence catches everyone off guard. Yugo smiles and rushes past him with lightning speed, saying he looks forward to fighting beside him one day. Later, a plane lands on a skyscraper rooftop to pick Yugo up after his report. He tells Kamuru that the demon threat will stay quiet for now. Kamuru thanks him and says trusting him was the right choice before mentioning Himuro Yusi, a former A-rank hunter who went rogue. Yugo remembers him as the one who caused chaos after being dismissed. Kamuru explains that he was taken into custody but disappeared without a trace. Yugo sighs, saying the situation is messy, but he cannot take care of it right now since he has other priorities. He promises to recommend 2 strong hunters and send their data later. Kamuru agrees and says he will review them soon. After ending the call, Kamuru turns to a man sitting nearby, apologizing for the delay and asking him to continue. The man introduces himself as Weisugi Oi, a former disciple of Himuro Yusi and a current A-rank hunter, saying that he plans to stop Yusi once and for all. The mood shifts again, signaling the beginning of a new arc with even bigger chaos and stronger opponents, like the story just unlocked its next boss. Years earlier, Weisugi Uji trained under his master, Himuro Yusi, a man known for being both a genius and a problem. Uji declares he wants to become the best hunter and take his duty seriously, but Yusi brushes it off, calling him too stiff and saying he doesn't want a boring disciple. With a playful push to Uji's back, Yusi tells him to loosen up and enjoy being a hunter, reminding him that not everyone gets the opportunity. Uji insists that responsibility should come first, but Yusi cuts him off, saying that if Uji wants to stay a student, he needs to stop chasing perfection and follow his own path instead of becoming a puppet of the association, which he calls useless. Uji eventually nods, but admits he could never be like Yusi, which makes the man laugh and ask if Uji is mocking him, sounding like someone who just won an argument in a flashback scene. Back in the present, Makoto and Kazani jog around a pond, while a man on a bench watches and wonders if they are training for the next big tournament. Kazani brings up the flower shop Makoto visited after their dungeon expedition, and Makoto explains that it was because Rinoa likes pretty things, adding that she makes the room feel brighter. A passerby wonders how many laps they have done since they've been running for a long time. Kazani asks what else Rinoa likes besides flowers, and Makoto hesitates, saying she should ask Rinoa directly. Overhearing this, Rinoa flatly says she has no particular preferences. Kazani tells her to be more friendly since they are on the same team, but Rinoa reminds her that she was the one who said she didn't trust her. Kazani grows frustrated and raises her voice, saying she dislikes Rinoa's attitude. Makoto tries to calm them down, but both tell him to stay out of it, leaving him stranded awkwardly. As they continue running, they overhear a couple discussing a criminal hunter who escaped from prison. The woman sounds worried while her boyfriend suggests they go home. Makoto asks Kazani if she knows anything about it, and she explains that the escapee is Himuro Yuzi, a former A-rank hunter who is incredibly skilled. She wonders what could make someone like that turn into a criminal. Makoto's phone suddenly buzzes, and Kazani's does too. They check and see an emergency summon from the Hunter Association. Kazani says that it looks like both of them have been summoned, and Makoto assumes it is probably due to Yugo's recommendation. She replies that they should head over and find out what is happening. They arrive at the Tokyo Hunter Association building and are guided to conference room number 5. A man enters, greeting them and introducing himself as Hayashi from the Abnormal Measures Division. He thanks them for coming and explains that, based on Yugo's recommendation, the two of them are being entrusted with the search for Himuro UCI. Both of them are shocked, having not expected a mission of this scale. Hayashi explains that while the police are investigating, the association must take independent action as well. He says UCI may be hiding near the gate where he escaped, and their role is to investigate the area. Makoto expresses concern about how dangerous the assignment sounds, but Hayashi reassures him, saying they will not be going alone since an A-rank hunter will accompany them. The door opens and Kazani freezes when she sees Uesugi Uji walk in. Uji greets her, saying it has been a while since they last worked together. Hayashi confirms that the team is now complete and steps out, telling them to review the mission documents. Kazani smiles, saying it really has been a long time since they cleared a gate together, and Uji agrees. Makoto watches him in admiration, remembering that Uji is the only prodigy of their generation to reach a rank. Makoto introduces himself respectfully, saying it is an honor to work with him, but Uji does not shake his hand. Instead, he states that he was Himuro UCI's former disciple and has no intention of teaming up. Both Makoto and Kazani are caught off guard as Uji picks up a tablet, saying that finding UCI is his personal responsibility and that the two of them will only get in his way. Kazani argues that teamwork is necessary, but Uji insists he does not need help and walks out. Makoto tries to stop him, suggesting that they divide tasks. He and Kazani could handle the demons inside the gate, while Uji focuses on locating UCI. Uji pauses, giving him a cold stare, but Makoto continues, saying they are still hunters and cannot ignore the mission. Kazani agrees, saying they will contribute however they can. Uji sighs and tells them they can do whatever they want, making it clear he will proceed alone. He leaves, ignoring Makoto's attempt to coordinate. Makoto turns to Kazani, worried, but she tells him to follow Uji for now, saying they will figure things out later, like every dysfunctional team that eventually comes together. That night, an abandoned school sits silent, the barrier surrounding it shattered. 3 middle school boys sneak inside, talking about claiming the building as their territory. One suggests dividing the floors, while another says the school is too large to control. As they walk, a flashlight beam reveals sharp ice spikes blocking a classroom. They wonder if it is a dungeon gate and why it's frozen. Suddenly, one boy falls silent. The others turn and see him frozen solid. Panic hits, but the ice spreads and traps them as well. A shadowed figure steps out from behind the ice and snaps it apart, the frozen boys shattering with it. The man mutters about the inconvenience of leaving corpses behind, then turns to the gate and seals it shut with ice. With cold eyes, he declares that he will take revenge on the association, believing his actions justified. It is Himuro UCI, the former A-rank hunter. Earlier, deep in a forest, Woogie, Makoto, and Kazan stand at the entrance of a C-rank dungeon. The atmosphere is tense but settled. Yusuji mentions again that he will handle things in his own way. Before they proceed, Makoto calls out, wanting to share something important about Rinoa, but Wizugi cuts him off before he can speak. He already knows, saying Yugo informed him about the demon contract. Makoto pauses, surprised, and when he asks if Wizugi disapproves, Wizugi simply replies that a contract is not evil unless misused. Kazine taps Makoto's shoulder, noting that Wizugi isn't as harsh as expected, then follows Wizugi inside. Makoto stays behind for a moment, processing whether someone could genuinely accept something like that. Soon, the three of them reach the boss room. A huge white spider waits there. Before anything unfolds, Oogie unleashes divine power, freezes it instantly, and shatters it into pieces. Makoto and Kazine watch in disbelief as Wizugi sighs, already tired of dealing with weak enemies. Divine Spirit Yuki appears near the dungeon entrance, and Makoto thanks Oogie for saving them. Wizugi says the search is complete with nothing found, so there is no reason to continue. Makoto looks back at the shattered spider, realizing he just witnessed the true ability of an A-rank hunter. As Wizugi leaves, Kazine accuses him of being self-centered, while Makoto remains still. Rinoa then informs Makoto that a new ability has awakened. Makoto asks immediately, and Rinoa explains it is residual shadow sense, a skill that tracks shadow traces to follow targets. Wazugi pauses, visibly surprised, as Rinoa explains that the skill can trace movement within the past 24 hours. Makoto is instantly hopeful and rushes toward Wazugi, explaining how the skill can help their mission. He asks if Wazugi knows any place significant to Yusei. After a moment, Wazugi starts walking, saying there is a hill near the dungeon where he and Yusei used to talk. Without further words, he leads the way. Kazine comments about Wazugi's attitude, while Rinoa quietly remarks on how cold he always seems. They reach the hill, and Wazugi stops, staring at the view. He remembers when Yusei once told him the hill felt like freedom, a place above rules, where possibilities opened. He even remembers Yusei nudging him and telling him to live freely instead of clinging to restrictions. Wazugi brushes the memory aside, and Makoto walks up, but Wazugi signals him to begin the ability. Makoto activates it, and shadows expand around him, revealing footprints toward the hill's edge. He studies the pattern, unsure of the identity, but Wazugi kneels down to inspect and confirms it is Yusei. Quietly, he wonders why he returned here. Makoto interrupts as he senses Yusei's current location. Wazugi stands, saying they move now. As they head back, Wazugi reflects that Yusei must have come to this hill seeking clarity. Meanwhile, at the Guild Association headquarters, Miss Mishima from Gate Management sits at her desk, staring at her screen as panic rises. Something is wrong. She orders her team to open a communication line immediately, then issues a chilling alert to all hunters. A possible gate break. Initiate instant search operations. While running through the forest, the group suddenly halts when a notification reaches them. It is the emergency announcement reporting an unknown gate location and ordering all hunters to mobilize. Makoto remembers that gates normally take 7 days before breaking, but Kazine, always realistic, says this one feels different and could rupture at any moment. She pushes them to find it quickly before everything spirals. Makoto brings up Yusei's traces, saying following them may lead to the gate. Uji's expression shifts as if something clicks. He recalls how Yusei always handled hesitation by acting first. Clenching his arm, Uji declares that Yusei's goal must be to trigger a gate break. He orders Makoto to lead fast, startling him, but Makoto immediately moves as a shadow ability guides them deeper through the forest. The trail leads them to an old abandoned school that looks straight out of a horror scene. As they approach, Makoto spots a shadowy figure near the entrance and alerts the others. The figure slips inside, and Uji instantly identifies it as Yusei. Before they advance, a loud crack erupts from the building, followed by a surge of dark energy, spreading violently. Makoto's chest tightens as memories of the same power that took his parents rush back. Kazine pales, remembering her brother's death. The windows explode, and a wave of demons bursts outward like an enraged swarm. Makoto shouts for everyone to hold the line and stop the invasion, while Kazine unleashes wind power to control the field. The demons swarm them from every direction, their screeches echoing through the trees. When they target Uji, he finally moves, releasing icy divine power that freezes half the swarm in an instant. Without hesitation, he leaps straight into the school, leaving Makoto and Kazine behind. Makoto curses Uji's habit of acting alone, but keeps cutting through demons while Kazine fights above. Her wind strikes carving through the sky. The battle grows harsher by the second, but just when exhaustion begins to crush them, flames erupt nearby, followed by bursts of other divine powers. Reinforcements rush in like cavalry, cleaving through demons in synchronized motion. One hunter shouts that Makoto and Kazine did well holding the line and that they will take over. Makoto looks around, amazed by their numbers, but he continues fighting, determined to prove himself. Someone calls him a wannabe hunter for his low mana output. It stings, but there is no time to argue. Suddenly, a tornado of wind clears the demons in front of him. Kazine shouts from above that she will handle the outside and tells him to catch up with Uji. Relieved, Makoto thanks her and dashes toward the school. Inside, The corridors feel like a nightmare maze with demons ambushing from every corner. Makoto cuts them down as he searches for the gate. He bursts into a room and stops. Uji is already there, freezing the demon boss mid-strike before shattering it effortlessly. Makoto stands speechless, wondering if the fight already ended. Uji confirms Yusei is gone and says stopping this gate won't matter because Yusei will just try again. Makoto refuses that idea, telling him giving up is not an option. Uji snaps, grabs Makoto's coat, and yells at him for acting like he knows everything. Makoto stays calm, reminding him that his strength carried them this far. Uji falters as Makoto explains that since the boss is down, they still have a chance to catch Yusei. Using residual shadow sense, Makoto finds the new trail, grabs Uji's arm, and urges him to move. Uji looks at Makoto's grip, his anger fading into a quiet sigh. Pulling away, he apologizes and walks ahead, saying thanks. Makoto replies that the thanks can wait until it's over, which actually makes Uji smile. He agrees and tells him to finish this fast. They reach another building soon, and Makoto points out that UCI's shadow leads straight inside. Uji freezes, asking if this is the association's gate management system. Makoto's eyes widen, and they rush in. Inside, they find the system destroyed, crystals shattered, and people frozen like statues. Uji runs deeper despite Makoto's warning, bursting into the final room where UCI stands beside a huge tube setting a bomb. Uji launches sharp ice spikes immediately, but UCI blocks them effortlessly and says everything is going as planned, warning Uji to stay out of his way. As Makoto nears the room, UCI flicks his fingers and forms a huge crystal block, sealing the doorway. Makoto stops just in time, avoiding being trapped. Yusei turns toward Uji with a smirk, saying this is their long-awaited reunion and that he wouldn't want anyone ruining the mood. Makoto pounds on the ice barrier, calling for Uji, but Uji stays focused. Yusei asks if he truly intends to end him. Uji answers coldly that mercy cannot be given. Yusei unleashes divine power, frost coating the floor, and summons his high-ranked divine spirit. Flahi mocks Uji to fight seriously. Uji summons Yuki, replying that he doesn't need reminding. Yusei explains that Uji can only win by defeating him and destroying the device in his hand. With reinforcements too far away, Uji activates divine energy for a one-on-one battle. He conjures ice spikes and fires them like missiles, but UCI blocks them with ease, brushing them aside as weak. Yuki looks shocked. UCI counterattacks with his own barrage, forcing Uji to dodge midair. Uji lands and summons dual swords for close combat. Yusei smirks, questioning where he learned that style, implying he already knows. Uji throws one of the swords at him, and Yusei blocks it easily, confused why Uji abandoned his dual advantage. But before he can react, Uji instantly regenerates another sword and strikes from the opposite direction, forcing Yusei to lean back to avoid the slash. Uji continues his assault, their movements clashing rapidly as USI blocks every strike with matching skill. Realizing Uji's speed is overtaking his ice regeneration, Yusei acknowledges it with amusement, but claims he has now adapted to Uji's rhythm. Uji insists he is no longer the same fighter he once was. For a brief moment, Uji appears to dominate, but USI drops his smile and releases a heavy surge of energy, shaking the room. Outside, Makoto keeps striking the ice barrier, frustrated by its strength, while Rinoa urges him to continue, saying it reflects UCI's overwhelming power. Inside, Yusei forms ice beside him, shaping it into a perfect replica of himself. He calls it his alter ego, explaining that while it cannot use skills, it mirrors his strength and movements. Uji dismisses it at first, but when his attack is intercepted flawlessly, he realizes the threat. Yusei mocks him for being alone, while his allies can only watch. Outside, Makoto hears this and panics as the bomb keeps ticking. Uji fights both versions at once, moving and blocking with precision, but the constant mirrored attacks wear him down. The real Yusei suddenly slips past his guard and lands a clean strike before kicking him away. Uji stands back up and forms an ice wall, to shield himself. Yusei watches with interest, amused by Uji's determination. Uji questions why Yusei chose destruction despite all his power. Yusei casually explains that hunters chase strength but are controlled by association rules, so he broke free. He claims his exile was worth it, calling those who obey the association brainwashed followers. The words freeze Uji in disbelief, and Makoto also reacts outside the barrier. Yusei continues, stating that with the gate break and the destroyed system, their world's collapse is inevitable, and that he sees it as revenge and liberation. Uji forces himself up, declaring he will stop him as his former student. Yusei dismisses it, calling him trapped. Uji looks down and realizes ice has bound his legs. As Yusei raises his blade to end him, the door suddenly explodes outward as the ice barrier shatters. A massive hammer crashes through, forcing Yusei back. Makoto enters with his weapon raised, focused entirely on stopping him. He frees Uji from the ice with a precise strike, revealing he already knew how to dismantle it. Uji realizes how hard Makoto worked to break through, allowing a brief hint of appreciation. Meanwhile, Himura watches in annoyance, accusing Makoto of bluffing his knowledge and dismissing him. Makoto and Uji advance toward Himura together. Recognizing that Uji is the greater threat, Himura moves to eliminate him first. He attacks swiftly, but Uji intercepts the strike, stating that he will be the one to take him down. Irritated, Himura orders his alter ego to target Makoto, and the clone rushes forward with a fierce assault. As Himura returns to dueling Wazugi, Makoto immediately picks up on the alter ego's sharp and fast movements. Compared to the monsters he has faced, especially Grom, this opponent is little more than a warm-up. He slides back across the frozen ground, boots scraping lightly as he studies its rhythm. Wazugi and Himura continue clashing, sparks flying between them. Himura mocks Wazugi, wondering if his ally's defeat has shaken him. Wazugi glances toward Makoto, but remains silent, irritating Himura further. Confident in his creation, Himura boasts that Makoto will never overcome his alter ego. But as he turns to taunt him again, his confidence evaporates. The clone lies split cleanly in half, and Makoto stands calmly with his sword, composed and untouched. Wazugi and Himura fall silent in disbelief. Makoto tilts his head slightly, noting that aside from demons, this barely counted as a warm-up. Himura pushes Wazugi back and fixes his stare on Makoto, asking if he has made a contract with a demon. Makoto brushes aside the question, wondering why it should matter. Himura's smirk returns, darker this time, as he warns that no one will accept a hunter bound by a demon contract. He questions whether Makoto expects happiness living that way, then tempts him further, suggesting they join forces and reshape the world. The offer lingers, and Makoto pauses, momentarily taken in by the conviction behind Himura's words. But he shakes it off, stating that even if some of Himura's points make sense, he still chooses to live as a hunter and explore the world by his own strength. He adds that Himura has become no different from the demons he claims to hate, then declares that he will defeat him as a hunter, not a puppet. Wazugi, energized by Makoto's resolve, grins and echoes the sentiment, saying that justice outweighs personal ties. Together, they call Himura the evil that must be stopped and charge forward, blades lifted with clear intention. Himura barely reacts, scoffing that they must be eager to die. The ground fractures beneath him as he moves with sudden speed, hitting them both in a single motion. Wazugi receives a deep gash that stains his clothing with blood, while Makoto takes a cut across his cheek. The impact proves Himura has been holding back until now. Gritting their teeth, Makoto and Wazugi attack again in tandem, only to have their strikes parried by a single casual swing. Himura shifts his attention toward Makoto and sends another heavy blow. Makoto blocks, but is thrown back, arm trembling from the force. He quickly realizes that Himura's true movements far surpass those of his alter ego, each strike precise and controlled. Seeking an opening, Makoto activates his residual shadow sense, seeing faint afterimages trail behind Himura's actions. The ability lets him predict attacks before they land. He considers sharing the vision with Wazugi, and Rinoa's voice resurfaces in his thoughts, reminding him that he can channel mana into another's eyes to transfer the ability. Grateful, Makoto channels energy into Wazugi's eye, and Wazugi gasps as the sight takes effect. As Wazugi adjusts, he sees Himuru's movements clearly and synchronizes with Makoto. When Himuru swings at Wazugi, Wazugi ducks and counters, forcing Himuru to defend, and Makoto sweeps in from the side. Their timing shifts the momentum, and Himuru's confident grin fades as he notices their coordination. Realizing they are reading him, he leaps back to create space and raises his hand, signaling that the fight is reaching its end. Wazugi narrows his eyes, aware of what Himuru intends. Himuru declares he will finish the battle with his ultimate move. Wazugi refuses to allow it. The ground shakes as Himuru summons a massive ice dragon whose roar chills the air, while Wazugi conjures one of his own. The dragons collide mid-air, detonating in a brilliant explosion that sends shock waves across the battlefield. When the smoke clears, Wazugi's dragon has been shattered into frozen fragments, and Himuru stands triumphantly, laughing. His laughter stops when a shadow spreads beneath him. Makoto steps out from the darkness, having foreseen the point Himuru would land after the attack. Before Himuru can react, Makoto and Wazugi appear behind him, blades gleaming. Himuru spins around in disbelief, demanding to know how they got there, but neither answers as their eyes lock on him, steady and unshaken. In a single coordinated strike, their blades cut clean through the device feeding his power. Sparks burst from Himuru's body as he collapses. Wazugi catches him before he hits the ground, looking down with anguish. He says he admired Himuru's freedom and mindset, but mourns that he chose a twisted path. Calling him master one final time, Wazugi whispers, "It is the end." Makoto stands beside him in silence as the pressure of battle fades. He reflects that no one is perfect, not even someone like Himuru, yet everyone still holds the choice to walk the right path again. With that conviction, he and Rinoa will keep trying to choose theirs. Outside, Yusuji scrolls through his device, saying the association will arrive soon to take Himuru into custody. Nearby, Himuru sits immobilized, ice sealing his mouth, hands, and feet. Makoto nods, agreeing that it is for the best. Wazugi turns to him, admitting he could not have one without Makoto, and thanks him sincerely, offering his hand. Makoto shakes it with a faint grin, joking that being thanked twice in one day is hilarious. Enforcement officers arrive moments later, securing Himuru and confirming the arrest. As they bow in acknowledgement of the successful mission, Makoto begins to relax, until another officer suddenly seizes him from behind. Startled, Makoto looks up as a man steps forward, calmly explaining that Makoto is suspected of involvement with a demon and must come for questioning. Tension returns, heavier than before. The next morning at the Tokyo Hunter Association, Makoto walks in bound by divine handcuffs, looking like a criminal from a holy soap opera. A team of hunters escorts him down polished halls, their steps echoing sharply. He stays composed and politely asks Hayashi where they are headed. Hayashi replies that they are going to the conference room, where his fate will be decided. Not the morning Makoto hoped for, but he keeps his face controlled as yesterday's suspicion plays in his mind. The chaos clearly left a bad impression, and the eyes on him feel heavier than the cuffs. Hayashi reminds him to behave, as if lecturing a student before facing the principal. Inside, Makoto sees Amagi and Komuro seated with two senior hunters. Amagi waves a bit too cheerfully for the situation, while Komuro watches with an unreadable expression. The hunters on the opposite side glare at Makoto, as if he ruined their favorite jackets. Komuro opens the conference regarding the abnormal incident, and on the screen footage of Makoto's dungeon battle plays, showing him assisting Wazugi to defeat Himuru. But the atmosphere chills as someone brings up the issue of Makoto's connection to the demon, Rinji Nyama. The Anti-Abnormality Division chief steps forward, declaring that they will decide the appropriate punishment. He directly asks Makoto whether he has a demon contract. Knowing Rinoa is aware, there is no point in lying. Makoto calls her forth. The moment she appears, the room shifts. Her presence floods the air with divine pressure. One hunter freezes while another loses all composure, pointing and shouting that she is not merely a demon but a Megan, declaring he will wipe her out immediately. His power flares instantly, but before the attack can even form, a spatial rift opens and consumes it. Amagi steps in, sounding mildly annoyed yet amused, telling him to calm down since the meeting has barely begun. Sububasori, an S-rank hunter with no patience, scoffs that this discussion is pointless, adding that he could erase Amagi first if he wants. The tension spikes, but after a long silence Tabesa sits back down, muttering that they should at least listen. Renji instructs Makoto to explain. Makoto states that Rinoa is not a Mainin, but a fallen divine spirit who became a demon. The room freezes in shock. Tabesa laughs incredulously, saying he has never heard anything like it. Floating beside Amagi, Nova leans forward and says she has heard rumors of divine spirits falling and turning into demons. Amagi asks her to elaborate, and she shares what she knows. Her calm voice eases the atmosphere slightly, and Amagi thanks her before asking if anyone still doubts Rinoa's identity. Sabesa remains stubborn, pointing out that even if she was once divine, she is still a demon and their duty remains. Renji turns the focus to how Rinoa became what she is and demands answers. Rinoa admits she fell, but refuses to explain how. The vagueness makes Tabesa slam the table, insisting that anyone hiding such things cannot be trusted. Renji agrees that keeping her around could be dangerous. Before the situation collapses, Makoto steps forward, claiming Rinoa is not a threat. Renji smoothly counters by asking if he can truly guarantee that. The heavy silence leaves Makoto scrambling for a way to prove it. Suddenly the doors swing open and a woman enters, yawning like she just finished the best nap of her life. She apologizes for her lateness and blames her bed. Renji sighs and addresses her as Himeji Kazuka, reminding her he told her to arrive on time. Carefree, she shrugs and blames the bed instead, earning a quiet chuckle from Amagi. She asks what the meeting concerns, and Amagi casually tells her it is about Makoto, the hunter who made a demon contract. Kazuka whistles, saying it sounds heavy. Then she glances at the doorway and asks about the two people outside. Amagi smiles, saying her timing is perfect. He calls them in, and Wizugi and Kazan enter to the room surprise. Renji immediately questions Amagi's reason for allowing outsiders. But Amagi simply states that Wizugi and Kazan are directly involved. Komuro nods, saying they deserve to speak. The two hunters step beside Makoto, standing firm in the tense room. Wizugi begins, saying they never would have stopped Himura without Makoto or Rinoa. Kazan adds that she fought with them and Rinoa proved she was not dangerous. She argues that someone who risks herself to protect others cannot be evil. Both bow deeply, begging for understanding. Shock ripples through the room, especially as Renji himself appears stunned that Kazan, known for hating demons, would defend one. Amagi smirks, saying if even Kazan trusts her, that means something. He asks whether the room truly doubts that Makoto and Rinoa might be the key to defeating demons. Sububasa rolls his eyes, dismissing him for being idealistic and insisting betrayal is far more likely. Amagi replies calmly that if betrayal happens, it is their job to deal with it. The confidence in his tone silences Sububasa, and Makoto silently appreciates him. Renji calls for a decision. He and Sububasa vote for punishment, while Amagi and Kazuka vote against. Sububasa glares at Kazuka for siding with Amagi, but she shrugs, saying it is rare to see Amagi stand up for someone and she respects that kind of loyalty. Her playful tone only aggravates him further. Renji turns to Komuro for the final decision. After a long pause, Komuro looks at Makoto and Rinoa, calm yet piercing. He says he will decide after hearing their intentions. Rinoa explains that she made the contract to save Makoto, whose heart was burdened with pain. She says demons are her enemies too, and she wants to fight them alongside him. Komuro nods and turns to Makoto. Makoto meets Rinoa's gaze and states that his goal is to prevent needless loss of life and protect both humans and spirits. He asks Komuro to use them for the world's sake. Amagi and Kazuka exchange approving looks, while Tobasa and Rinji appear dissatisfied. After a quiet pause, Komuro finally states he has reached his decision. The room falls still, waiting for the outcome. He declares that Makoto and Rinoa will continue their activities under the supervision of the Hunter Association. Most hunters are stunned except Amagi, who reacts as though he already expected this. Tsubasa looks displeased, demanding an explanation, unable to believe Komuro would allow this so easily. Calm and slightly weary, Komuro explains that Makoto's actions demonstrated value and that the association may still benefit from him. When he looked into Makoto's eyes, he found no deception, only determination. Since no one fools his judgment, his decision remains. Tsubasa reluctantly accepts it. Komuro then states the conditions. First, the fallen angel must reveal everything she knows about the Megan, their abilities, and their numbers. Second, Makoto and Rinoa must rebuild their reputation by subjugating demons and presenting them to the association to earn trust. With no room to refuse, Makoto immediately agrees and bows in gratitude. Because Rinoa's knowledge is confidential, Wasagi and Kazan are asked to leave. She admits her information is limited, but reveals that there are around 100 Megan. Their society follows ranks similar to hunters, and several among them match Amagi's level. Faces grow pale, but Komuro remains steady, confident they will find a way to deal with it. She then adds that the Mag follow a king-like leader. While she does not know much about this figure, its existence is certain. Komuro acknowledges the importance of this, but Rinji asks where she learned it. The room grows heavier as she explains she was captured by the Megan after her banishment and taken to their base, where they attempted to recruit her. Their organization and numbers overwhelmed her, and before they could corrupt her, she managed to escape. Komuro asks why they invaded the human realm. She explains that unlike demons driven by instinct, the Mag possess intellect and plan their attacks with purpose. If commanded by a king, the invasion is strategic, not random. The realization unsettles the room. Tsubasa, however, appears thrilled rather than worried, eager for the challenge. Amagi agrees that fighting intelligent enemies could be interesting. A faint spark of anticipation moves through the room. Komuro thanks Rinoa, stating her information is valuable and that they may need further contact with her. The goal remains unchanged, to protect humanity from demons. For now, Makoto is to stay in custody for observation and security. Everyone agrees it is safer to keep him in headquarters. Komuro warns him that rumors will spread due to his contract with a demon, so he must prove himself through results. He is assigned to gain merit by clearing demon portals, fitting his current F rank. Hime notes that the next official evaluation is months away, but Komuro, energized by Rinoa's report, says he will not wait. He announces a special re-evaluation for Makoto immediately. The hunters laugh, seemingly used to Komuro's unpredictability. Makoto, unsure if they are serious, is suddenly guided toward the training hall. Moments later, Makoto finds himself standing in the arena before the association head, who wields a radiant divine blade. Komuro states that Makoto must fight him directly to prove his worth, though he will only use a fraction of his power. It offers little comfort, but Makoto has no choice. Komuro's divine spirit manifests, altering the atmosphere with overwhelming pressure, and Makoto questions whether this is the same gentle old man from earlier. The hunters gather, eager to watch the trial. Komuro explains the final condition. Makoto must land at least one hit or face expulsion from the association. Makoto can hardly believe it, but Komuro assures him he is serious. The fight begins instantly. Komuro closes the distance before Makoto can react and strikes him in the chest, sending him crashing into the wall. His bones ache, yet he forces himself up, gripping his sword tighter. One strike feels like he has been hit by unstoppable force, but he refuses to stay down. Komuro watches him closely, wondering if Makoto's earlier resolve was genuine. Makoto grits his teeth, raises his sword, and steadies himself despite the shaking in his arms. With no choice, Makoto pushes forward, binding his opponent with chains and revealing the ability for the first time. He leaps, his strike seeming unstoppable, but the chairman effortlessly catches the blade between his fingers, calling the attempt shallow before throwing Makoto to the ground. Gasping for breath, Makoto realizes he won't land a single hit at this rate. He backs away, trying to steady himself while Camera breaks the chains and asks if he has anything else. Meanwhile, Amagi opens a bottle of alcohol, enjoying the fight, while others react differently. Hime finds it nostalgic, recalling her own early struggle. Sububasa is even surprised Camera is holding back, insisting he should return to frontline duty. Makoto remains still, thinking hard about how he can land a strike. Growing tired of waiting, Camera launches his attack. His movements are intense. He closes the distance instantly and summons his glowing weapon. Knowing he cannot block the blow, Makoto leaps away at the last second, the attack grazing and slicing his clothing. Camera increases the pressure, using each swing as a test, praising Makoto's reactions and encouraging him to keep up. The continuous attacks give no room for counterplay, and Makoto realizes that merely dodging will lead to defeat. He gains distance and shifts his shadow weapon into a firearm. The chairman is momentarily surprised, and the audience grows more entertained by the unfolding exchange. Makoto fires, wondering if he struck his target, but his eyes widen as a massive shield materializes around Camera. The chairman commends him for forcing its appearance while questioning when it was summoned. Camera escalates further by producing a long spear. His divine spirit ability, Armory, allows him to change weapons freely. With access to heroic equipment and Yulon, the god of weapons, behind him, Camera is considered the association's strongest melee fighter. The second round begins. Knowing a firearm is risky against a lancer, Makoto shifts back to his sword. Camera remarks that Armory resembles shadow materialization. Then he charges, curious how Makoto will respond. Their weapons clash, spear range and power versus Makoto's adaptations. Something catches Makoto's eye, and he reacts quickly, diverting a flying axe. Camera presses on, summoning a huge hammer. Seeing its form beginning to fade, Makoto leaps high to avoid another strike, only for the weapon to shift again into a bow. He holds on, doing everything he can to survive. Amagi watches with approval, noting Camera's skill as a teacher. Makoto cuts through the arrow, and both fighters reset their stance. Speaking to Rinoa, Amagi explains that Armory gives an advantage regardless of the opponent, which is why Camera wanted Makoto to observe him. Camera charges again, questioning Makoto's answer to a swordsman matchup. Learning from the exchange, Makoto summons a spear, the natural counter. But he knows this alone is not enough. Just as Camera attempts to switch into a spear himself, Makoto shifts his weapon again, closing in unhindered. In a tight instant, he brings out a small dagger and uses the minimum distance to slip the blade into the chairman's chest, tearing his shirt slightly. The crowd reacts in shock as he exploits the delay in weapon swapping. Exhausted, Makoto waits for the verdict. Using a spear up close is difficult, so he aimed for the brief opening. It worked, finishing the exam with intelligence rather than brute strength. Nearly falling to his knees, worn down by the test, and guided continuously through it, Makoto shows not only agility, but the ability to think and adapt under pressure. After receiving advice to improve further, Makoto's reevaluation ends with a B- rank. It is a big step up, and the score reflects both his current ability and his potential. Filled with determination, he commits to becoming stronger. Amagi approaches, acknowledging the thorough assessment, but reminding him he still has a long way to go. Knowing this is true, Makoto calls out to him, driven by a desire to grow, and requests mentorship. Amagi accepts, having already planned to train him and looking forward to his progress. They sit together with their divine spirits, and Amagi suggests repeating the training method he and Nova once used. Most hunters strengthen their bond with their spirits to use their power more efficiently. Makoto asks if this applies to him and Rinoa, since she is a demon, but Amagi explains that it works for them as well. Because their contracts are tied to divine stones, there should be no issues, and divine energy can be converted into mana. This is especially beneficial for Rinoa, who has a vast mana pool but lacks control over it. With training, she may finally learn to manage that power, which would also make Makoto stronger. Encouraged, Makoto tells Amagi he is ready. Amagi then explains the main exercise. The two must hold hands while clearing dungeons. Both pause, unsure if he is joking, but he is completely serious. The next day, they enter an F-rank dungeon hand-in-hand. Makoto asks if Rinoa is used to this, but she reminds him to focus, saying there is nothing unusual about it. The rule is simple, no talking during fights, and they cannot let go until each dungeon is cleared, all the way up to C rank. Makoto questions whether this will really make them stronger and prepares himself by observing the monsters first. Rinoa immediately drags him forward, pointing at a group and charging ahead before he can react, pulling him face first into the dirt. She insists they need to defeat enemies quickly, while Makoto argues they should study their targets. They dodge attacks, but move awkwardly, constantly pulling each other in opposite directions. Fighting while connected proves difficult because their timing is completely off. To end the mess, Makoto summons his shadow weapon and eliminates the monsters in one swing. Afterward, he complains that she moves too fast, while she counters that he is too slow. Their approaches clash, but they both have valid points. Before they can continue arguing, more enemies appear because they took too long. They exchange looks and decide to drop the argument for now, charging forward again. Their coordination remains rough, but they at least try to work together. 2 weeks later, they reach the C-rank dungeon boss room. They have grown used to holding hands, though their rhythm is still inconsistent. This is their biggest challenge yet, and they know they must rely on understanding rather than perfect synchronization. A massive legacy golem waits for them. Its roar shakes the chamber, and Rinoa calls it an ideal opponent before pulling Makoto into battle. His shadow hammer strike barely cracks the creature's rocky skin. Rinoa attacks again, but their conflicting movements get them thrown aside. Makoto struggles to move when he notices Rinoa's focused expression. She clearly has a plan, and when she squeezes his hand, he understands she wants him to trust her. Without hesitation, he follows her as the golem charges. They dodge together and counterattack. His hammer strike reveals a glowing orb in its chest, the weak point found thanks to Rinoa's lead. She moves to finish it, but Makoto pulls her back. Confused at first, she recognizes his intent when she sees his expression. She nods, trusting him, and they retreat just before a massive energy blast hits. This time, she realizes his slower method prevented unnecessary damage. As the golem rises again, they move with sharper awareness. Their movements finally align, and Makoto lands a heavy counterattack that forces the monster back. They continue pressing forward, attacking with a rhythm that finally matches. Individually, the fight would have been impossible. Together, they manage it. Makoto summons his shadow sword, and the two leap high, combining their strength for one decisive strike. The blade splits the golem and shatters the core within. The monster collapses with a loud crash, their victory echoing through the dungeon. Makoto raises his hand for a high five, but Rinoa only looks confused, so he shrugs, having expected that reaction. Later that night, Amagi sits at a bar when the doorbell rings. He senses a presence and asks how he knew about it. Makoto enters, explaining that the chairman told him this is where his mentor usually drinks. Amagi chuckles as he turns toward him. Makoto thanks him, saying the training helped more than he imagined. His mana control has improved so much that even Amagi is surprised compared to 3 days ago. His progress has increased rapidly beyond expectations. Proud of him, Amagi hands him a drink. He tells Makoto that an email came asking him to go to a B-rank dungeon a few hours ago in the association meeting room. Mishima reports the detection of a large portal similar to a normal dungeon, but on a much bigger scale, suggesting it may require more hunters than usual. Renji asks the president for his view, and he calmly instructs Mishima to begin selecting hunters before asking about the dungeon's rank. When he learns it is B rank, a grin appears as if he already has a plan. He immediately recommends one particular hunter, confident that this person will accomplish something notable. Renji recognizes that expression and already suspects who he is referring to. Mishima asks for the name, and Kamuro reveals Makoto's hunter file on the screen. The next day, on the outskirts of Kanto Prefecture, several hunters gather around a massive portal humming with unstable energy. The swirling colors feel like a storm about to burst, and the ground trembles beneath their feet. It is Makoto's first time seeing so many people assembled for a single dungeon, and the tense atmosphere makes him uneasy. Hunters check weapons, adjust gear, and talk strategy. Suddenly, someone notices him and shouts across the crowd, calling him out for appearing here and recognizing him as the one who once made a deal with the demon. Tension rises, and several surround him, full of anger and resentment. They say he betrayed the association and everyone who lost their families to demons. The words hit harder than the heat of the portal. Makoto wants to respond, but knows it is pointless. From their perspective, he committed the unforgivable. He stays silent, aware that arguing would only make things worse. Insults continue, questioning why someone like him is needed for a raid. Rinoa looks furious, wondering if he will allow this. But Makoto simply signals that this is part of the job, and they should focus on the mission. Things escalate when a hunter loses control and fires an arrow of electricity at him. Makoto raises his sword to block it, but a wall of water appears first, stopping it. Everyone freezes in shock. A commanding voice calls for them to stop. The crowd parts, revealing a tall woman with long silver hair and blue eyes. Sarah steps forward, and her presence silences everything instantly. She scolds the group for fighting and apologizes to Makoto as the raid organizer, saying she is counting on him today. Makoto greets her. She smiles and directs everyone to focus on the mission rather than the past as she begins assigning roles. Her voice remains firm yet calm. Sarah is an A-rank hunter known throughout the association not only for her strength, but for her online presence as a famous influencer with about 3 million followers. Cheerfulness suits someone of her rank. Among the hunters, a quiet man with sharp eyes lingers behind while the others prepare. He keeps glancing at Makoto as if trying to understand him. The group soon enters the dungeon. The temperature rises sharply, and the air becomes thin and dry. After traveling some distance, they reach the edge of a massive cliff that descends into darkness. The pit is filled with countless demons whose glowing eyes shift restlessly below. Sarah observes the drop and gathers herself, then instructs the earth and water users to construct a bridge before the demons detect them. She turns to Makoto and tells him to stand watch so nothing climbs up. He moves forward, scanning the depths. The atmosphere feels heavy, almost as if the dungeon itself is aware of their presence. Makoto focuses, unaware that the expressions of the team behind him begin to shift. A signal sounds, and several hunters seize him at once, binding his arms. He resists, but they outnumber him. In confusion, he demands to know why. Sarah looks at him without warmth, stating that the group believes it is safer if he does not return from the dungeon. His past pact with a demon marks him as a danger. Without hesitation, they drag him toward the edge. He hears Rinoa in his thoughts, but before he reacts, they push him over. He plummets while laughter echoes from above, joking that even an A-ranker cannot survive against that many B-rank demons, and that they will check for a body later. Sarah peers down, expression empty, saying this is the best choice for the team and apologizing quietly. As he falls, memories rush forward. His first betrayal when he met Rinoa, the helplessness of trusting too easily. A flash of light interrupts his descent. Rinoa appears, wings spread wide, telling him to leave the fall to her. Makoto regains focus, extends his hands, and dark chains burst from his palms, anchoring into the walls and stopping him. He hangs there, breathing heavily while demons below howl at the scent of prey. He knows slipping means death, but he is no longer who he used to be. Rinoa hovers determined beside him. They understand what comes next. He releases the chains and lands safely within the swarm. Above, the silent hunter who had been watching gasps at the sight. He mutters that he must act, but freezes in uncertainty. Makoto fights without pause. Each strike is cleaner than the last, his mana and stamina balanced far better than before. Surrounded, he remains steady, feeling a small sense of pride as another demon falls. Rinoa notes how difficult this used to be, and Makoto attributes their improvement to training. Meanwhile, the observer loses his footing, the edge crumbles, and he falls to the ground near Makoto. Dazed, he lifts his head just in time to see demons charge at him. He tries to escape, but they corner him. Makoto steps in, cutting them down in one swift motion. Dust settles as the battlefield quiets. The shaken hunter looks up at him in disbelief. Makoto asks who he is,